Right now at 4 a.m. here on the East Coast, it is official. Republican Rick Scott, the new senator of Florida, as Democrat Bill Nelson finally concedes. But he's not the only one heading for the exit. Is embattled election supervisor Brenda Snipes also on her way out? And border backlash, angry residents now demanding the migrant caravan go home. Look at this. The brand new threat from the president also to lock it down. And friend or feast, how it's now up to you to decide which turkey will get the presidential pardon this Thanksgiving. Fox and Friends First starts right now. Good morning to you. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning. Hope that everyone joining us had a great weekend. Thank you so much for starting your week with us. The battle is apparently over. Senator Bill Nelson conceding to Republican Rick Scott in the race for Florida Senate. And overnight, the elections official overseeing the recount reportedly resigns. Griff Jenkins is live for us again in Broward County, Florida. He is still there with the very latest for us this morning. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. She lost 2,000 ballots. She missed deadlines, and she failed to report accurate election night numbers. And now, according to the Sun Sentinel newspaper, Dr. Brenda Snipes has resigned. We believe, according to the report, that she will be effective January 2nd. She will be gone. And now Governor-elect Ron DeSantis will appoint a new Broward County elections chief. Now, this comes on the heels of the big news, of course. Senator Bill Nelson conceding in a video statement after losing by 10,033 votes to Rick Scott. Take a listen.
I was not victorious in this race, but I still wish to strongly reaffirm the cause for which we fought. A public office is a public trust.
And now that public trust will go to Senator-elect Rick Scott, who pins this in an op-ed on Fox News saying, quote, "Now the voters of Florida have spoken, and I am honored to serve as our state's new senator and share Florida's success with the entire nation. With a heated campaign season behind us, it is time for our leaders to come together, roll up their sleeves, and get something done for families across America. It is time to make Washington work." So a lot of news here at the very end. Finally, I would add, it's not a total loss for Democrats. They won a big statewide election in the recount for the Commissioner of Agriculture. Heather?
But the biggest question of all, does that mean that you finally get to head home, Griff? Let's hope so.
It means I'm heading home for a quick turnaround, and I may be in New York a little later this week for Turkey Day.
All right.
That's just a tease for you, Heather.
All right. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Griff. Great job. Well, another big story we have been following for you, a Fox News alert. At least 80 people are dead, more than 1,200 still missing in California's devastating wildfires. A candlelight vigil held in Northern California to honor the 77 victims of the Camp Fire. And Pope Francis sending a special prayer to everyone impacted by the fires burning around the state. Heavy rain in this week's forecast could bring some relief, but there's a new risk of flooding, mudslides, and already devastated areas, so we'll keep an eye on it. Well, whomever killed an American teacher in Mexico will pay. A Mexican governor vowing revenge in the Sinaloa cartel drug trafficker who murdered Patrick Braxton Andrew. The North Carolina man's remains just recovered after he disappeared on a hiking trip last month. It's unclear how Braxton Andrew was murdered or what evidence officials have implicating the cartel. Well, today, Saudi Arabia's King Salman will give his first address since the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. It's unclear whether he will talk about the Washington Post columnist. Khashoggi was murdered and dismembered at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last month. You'll remember that. President Trump says that he will not listen to a recording of the brutal killing.
It's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There's no reason for me to hear it. In fact, I said to the people, should I? They said, you really shouldn't. There's no reason. I know everything that went on the tape without having to.
Well, the CIA concluded that the Saudi crown prince ordered Khashoggi's death, something the Saudi kingdom denies. Well, in an exclusive interview with Fox News, President Trump criticizing the Mueller investigation and defending Matt Whitaker as acting attorney general. Meanwhile, Democrat Adam Schiff publicly denouncing the president's choice yesterday, calling it unconstitutional. Garrett Tenney reports on the escalating dispute.
President Trump said he didn't know about Matt Whitaker's past criticisms of the Mueller investigation before picking him as acting attorney general. And afterwards, when he did find out, the president said it didn't have any effect on his decision. He also told Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday he doesn't think Whitaker's past criticisms of the special counsel will have any impact on the investigation.
Well, he says there's no collusion. He says,
Chris, I'll tell you what.
Says you can starve the investigation.
He's right. What do you do when a person's right? There is no collusion. He happened to be right. I mean, he said it. So if he said there is collusion, I'm supposed to be taking somebody that says there is, because then I wouldn't take him for two reasons. But the number one reason is the fact that he would have been wrong. If he said that there's no collusion, he's right.
Democrats aren't buying that explanation, though. And on ABC's This Week, Congressman Adam Schiff said his party plans to challenge the constitutionality of Whitaker's appointment since he wasn't approved by the Senate, and said if Whitaker tries to do anything to curb the Mueller investigation, Congress will expose it and take action.
The biggest flaw, from my point of view, is that he was chosen for the purpose of interfering with the Mueller investigation. He auditioned for the part by going on TV and saying he could hobble the investigation. And ethically, he should have absolutely nothing to do with the investigation.
President Trump said his legal team is still going over his written answers to questions from the special counsel, but he expects that those will be submitted sometime this next week. In Washington, I'm Garrett Tenney, Fox News.
With Democrats set to control the House come January, many are asking, will the president change his tone if he is investigated? Missouri Senator Roy Blunt says not a chance.
I think the American people got exactly the person they elected as President of the United States. I think that's going to continue. I think what Democrats in the House are going to find surprising, and probably a lot of people in the media are going to find surprising, is while the other people who've been president would hate the idea of investigations, I'm sure the president would rather have a Republican House, but I think he will vigorously engage in a public way in these investigations if the Democrats try to pursue them. But if they investigate, they're going to have an active participant talking about how those investigations are being conducted in the White House, and that participant's going to be the President of the United States.
You know, in the meantime, Nancy Pelosi picks up more support ahead of next week's vote for House Speaker. Pennsylvania Congresswoman-elect Chrissy Houlihan and Colorado Congressman-elect Joe Neguse say that they want Pelosi to take her old job back.
Right now, she's the only person who's running, so it would appear as though that's where my vote would go. And right now, I believe that she's an effective person in that job.
I intend to support her. I think that it's important that we have steady leadership right now. I think we are all working together, rowing in the same direction, trying to save our democracy, to be frank.
Last week, 17 Democrats signed an unreleased letter vowing not to vote for Pelosi. Well, to week 11 in the NFL, the Chicago Bears picking up a huge division win on Sunday Night Football.
Rolling that way, keeps his eyes downfield, throws a little low, and it is Anthony Miller.
Quarterback Mitch Trubisky and the Bears defense hold off the Minnesota Vikings 25-20. And in a scary sight in Washington, Redskins quarterback Alex Smith carted off the field with a badly broken leg. He's done for the year. The Redskins lose 23-21 to Houston, and my Carolina Panthers fall short in Detroit after Cam Newton misses a 2-point conversion. Lions win 20-19. Lots of folks blaming the coach for that one. And then there's this. President Trump and First Lady Melania will receive the national Christmas tree at the White House today. The nearly 20-foot-tall, 800-pound Fraser fir chosen from a farm in North Carolina. It is scheduled to arrive at the White House around 1 o'clock Eastern time, but it will not be lit up until next Wednesday. Remember, we told you about that tree. The farmer had actually given up on it. It was basically what you call the runt of the litter, and now it's going to be at the White House. Well, the time now is about 9 minutes after the top of the hour, and high-speed horror. A shocking video showing the moment a race car driver loses control, goes airborne at 170 miles per hour. How that teenage driver survived that horrific crash. And North Korea.
I think North Korea's been very tough because, you know, we were very close. President Obama, right in those two chairs, we sat and talked, and he said that's by far the biggest problem that this country has. And I think we had a real decision as to which way to go in North Korea. And certainly, at least so far, I'm very happy with the way we went.
Well, President Trump sounding off on his foreign policy successes and challenges in an exclusive interview with Fox News' Chris Wallace. Here to respond, Douglas Berkey. He is the executive director of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Power Studies. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
No, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's begin with what we heard the president talking about just there. And let's begin with North Korea and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, North Korea is a very difficult situation. Obviously, it is crucial to give diplomacy a chance. So the president opening up dialogue is a very, very important step. However, in this case, it's also important to remember that North Korea is an expert on buying time to bleed down diplomatic pressure. So they've played this move before. The main check that we have to really keep in play here is military power. That's the one thing that they're always going to respond to. And so if you look at our investment in air power with systems like the F-35, the F-22, the B-2, later on the B-21, absolutely crucial to project survivable, credible power. And it's not just about North Korea directly. It's about how China reads us. It's about our allies in the region like Japan and South Korea. We have to be a credible presence for them as well. So let the talks continue, but ensure that we have a firm presence right behind them with military force.
Let's talk about Pakistan. In that sound that we just played, he's mentioned that, you know, we're giving Pakistan $1.3 billion a year.
Yeah, you know, for too many years, Pakistan has been playing both sides of the fence. If you look at their actions, obviously, with the Taliban throughout broader Afghanistan, they really have been on both sides here. And it's not just about what's going on in that region. Look at about their relationship with China. They're a huge ally with a major competitor of ours. You can't have it both ways. You can't ask for our funds and yet cut deals with our enemies. And so I think the president is right to draw clarity here. And we really need to look realistically at where we sit and draw strategies accordingly.
And what about Saudi Arabia? He says that, you know, we put heavy sanctions on Saudi Arabia, massive sanctions on a large group of people there. But at the same time, we do have an ally that we want to stick with.
Now, this is a really difficult needle to thread. First and foremost, the Khashoggi killing is something that is an absolute horrific event, and international norms in that regard matter, because when you need those kind of rules to defend you, you have to ensure you haven't torn them down or weakened them in any way. I mean, what if an enemy country had a citizen of the United States? So we need to make sure those are strong. However, at the exact same time, we need to ensure that we do not permanently harm the relationship with Saudi Arabia. You know, the Khashoggi killing was unfortunate. That's one individual. But the issues in play that the relationship with Saudi Arabia control affect millions, because their friendship with the United States is crucial in the region as well as the globe at large. And so really threading that needle is going to be a tough piece of work. And you need to do both. You cannot let the killing go, but you've got to preserve the alliance.
And finally, on Iran, the president claims that Iran has been far weakened because of what he did with the Iran deal.
Yeah, you know, people oftentimes bleed down their focus on Iran way too fast. But the reality is you've got decades of determined progress here towards nuclear weapons. The president's decisions on the sanctions certainly have had a positive effect in that regard and turning up the heat on them. And I think we need to let that continue to play out.
All right, Douglas Berkey, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight. We got through a lot there.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour, and he's a retired Navy SEAL who lost his eye fighting overseas. And now Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw has a wake-up call for those in the media who consider themselves victims of the president's words.
How is that an attack on the press, though?
Because it's literally an attack on the press.
I've literally been attacked, so let's choose our words carefully.
Carly Shimkus is here with the reaction pouring in this morning. Welcome back. 22 minutes after the top of the hour, you're watching Fox and Friends First. Democrat Stacey Abrams still bitter about her election defeat in Georgia. The failed gubernatorial candidate now refusing to call Republican Brian Kemp the legitimate governor-elect.
The law as it stands says that he received an adequate number of votes to become the governor of Georgia.
Is he the legitimate governor-elect of Georgia?
He is the person who won an adequate number of votes
but that's
to become the governor.
With all.
Well, Abrams gave up her bid last week, but refused to concede. She says the election was tainted and claims democracy failed in the state. Well, a Republican who lost his primary by just one vote will not get the recount he asked for. Jimmy Ayers on the left lost to fellow Republican Ronnie Campbell in the Virginia House District 24 primary. A local media outlet reports a committee decided last night not to hold the recount. Well, he is a retired Navy SEAL who lost his eye fighting overseas. And now Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw has a wake-up call for those in the media who consider themselves victims of the president's words.
I would argue that our president is consistently disruptive in those very same press conferences, and I would argue that he treats them with
How is that an
disrespect.
attack on the press, though?
Because it's literally an attack on the press.
I've literally been attacked, so let's choose our words carefully.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. Sirius XM 115 is here with the reaction online to that. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Heather. So incoming Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who lost an eye in combat, reminding his fellow CBS panelists what it really means to be attacked. Let's see if we get to some reaction to this on social media. There we have it. Some folks who caught that quick comment are now weighing in. One Twitter user says, at some point we need to get away from the idea of attacking ideas. When your position opposes another legislators, it should become an opportunity for debate. Words really do matter. Another person on Facebook, Jeff, says Congressman Crenshaw has a clearer definition of the word attack than most. And Michael on Twitter also weighing in, saying fully support his ideas. Culture changes one behavior at a time. Now, many others, including his fellow panelists on CBS, were arguing that the president does, in fact, attack the media through his words when he uses phrases like enemy of the people and fake news.
Yeah, I don't think I would be one to argue with him, though, about what a real attack is. Let's talk about the White House asking people to vote on annual turkey pardon, though.
That's right. And that annual presidential turkey pardon is taking place this week. I believe it's happening tomorrow. And this year's birds hail from the great state of South Dakota. They're currently roosting happily at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. And the White House is giving the people the power to choose which bird gets pardoned. All you have to do is sign up to vote via a link on the White House Twitter page. There they are right there in the car heading to Washington, D.C. Many folks on social media, like Ella and Jackie, they want the president to pardon both birds. And yet last year, the president did just that. He pardoned a bird named Wishbone and Drumstick. So we'll see if he is feeling very kind and does that again.
I was going to say, I thought they were both always pardoned.
I think, yeah, they bring two just in case one gets fussy, and then they usually just pardon one, I believe. But both, of course, live. They don't end up on any plates.
Okay, thank you for clarifying
You're
that.
welcome.
So, Steve Carell, what is he up to?
All right, well, fans of The Office they're not gonna like this news. This touchscreen's being a little finicky here. He batted down rumors that The Office is going to be coming back. He says it ain't gonna happen. Watch.
Will you ever reboot The Office?
No, actually, I don't think so. It was a great experience. I love all of those people, but I just don't think it's the best idea. I think maybe we should just leave it alone.
Yeah, very serious moment from Steve Carell. The news coming as a crushing blow to some people like Cade, who says he's legitimately heartbroken. People have been wanting the show to come back since it ended in 2013, but he says, nope, he's going to leave that in the past and move on with his career.
Well, I don't know. They could always change their mind.
Yeah, that's right. Everything gets a reboot these days. Why not?
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, a Fox News alert for you. Tensions escalating in Tijuana. Take a look at this video between the thousands of migrants arriving from the caravan and the people who live there. The brand new warning from President Trump up next. And welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. This Fox News alert for you now. Get out. That is the message from the people of Tijuana as they battle the migrant caravan arriving by the thousands. President Trump now responding as tensions grow fierce in Mexico. Todd Pyro joins us now live with a message to illegals. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning to you, Heather. A heated weekend in rhetoric and in reality. Hundreds of residents in the border city of Tijuana protesting the arrival of Central American migrants who they worry will linger in their city for months as they try to claim asylum in the U.S.
They don't need it to be here. United States, the door is closed. Your country have to be beware of these people because they are people, they are bad people. So you have to support too and close the door.
Continue to try to use American asylum laws to get into our country, something President Trump says is not going to happen en masse on his watch. He tweets, quote, catch and release is an obsolete term. It is now catch and detain illegal immigrants trying to come into the U.S., often proudly flying the flag of their nation as they ask for U.S. asylum, will be detained or turned away. Dems must approve border security and wall now, with the president adding that he is not opposed to legal immigration.
We have millions of people online to get into our country legally. And those people have preference. They have to have preference. They've been waiting for a long time.
The mayor of Tijuana letting his displeasure with the migrants be known, calling it an invasion, saying his city is ill-prepared to handle it, and guessing that the backlog at the border could last 6 months. Right now, there are close to 6,000 U.S. troops deployed to our southern border, spread out across California, Arizona, and Texas. Heather?
All right. Todd Pyro joining us live this morning. Thank you, Todd.
No problem.
It is sentencing day for the man who admits to killing his pregnant wife and 2 little girls. Chris Watts could spend the rest of his life behind bars after taking a plea deal to avoid the death penalty in Colorado. He was sentenced in August, just days after going on TV to beg for the safe return of his family, claiming that they went missing. The bodies of Shanann, Celeste, and Bella Watts were found days later at the oil field where he worked. A special envoy to the U.S. is hopeful that officials will strike a peace deal with the Taliban by April. Ongoing negotiations aimed at ending the 17-year war in Afghanistan. The terrorist group is demanding sanctions relief, the release of prisoners, and recognition of a political office in Qatar. The White House could be in for a staff shakeup. In an exclusive Fox News interview, President Trump says up to 5 positions are on the line, including that of Chief of Staff John Kelly.
Look, we get along well. There are certain things I love what he does, and there are certain things that I don't like that he does. There are a couple of things where it's just not his strength. It's not his fault. It's not his strength. But John at some point is going to want to move on. John will move on.
The president reportedly also considering removing Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. He says she's not as tough on border issues as he wants her to be. Well, switching gears, Joey Logano takes down a trio of champions to win his first NASCAR title.
To turn number 4 to claim his first ever Cup Series championship, it's Joey Logano who wins.
Logano winning the final race of the season at Homestead Miami Speedway after barely making the playoffs. He beat out last year's champ Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick. And now we're going to switch gears back again. Democrats' first order of business next year, targeting your tax cuts. Not all Democrats, though, are on board. Congressman Jerry Conley airing party uncertainty, quote, saying, do we really want to go down that road? Other party groups saying, quote, this would be a staggeringly bad idea. Here to break down why Democrats want to raise taxes is Peter Morici. He's the former chief economist at the U.S. International Trade Commission. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
So, good idea, bad idea. Why would Democrats want to do this?
Well, it's a bad idea to raise taxes. Donald Trump has raised American economic growth to 3%, and that's remarkable given the record of Barack Obama, and he's done it by cutting taxes and deregulation. I guess the Democrats, as they always have been, are anti-free enterprise, anti-progress, and just looking for some cash to buy some more votes.
So how would they do this to begin with, though? Democrats, apparently they're hoping to undo this Republican rule that would make it difficult for those, for the House to vote to raise anyone's taxes. How would they do this?
Well, the majority party sets the rules of voting in the House. And the Republicans set a rule that you needed 60% of the votes to raise taxes, which is a high hurdle in the House. Nancy would like to reduce that hurdle back to a simple majority, make it easy for her to raise taxes in a moment of crisis, perhaps during budget negotiations or when something really needs to get done. You know how Democrats behave, let no crisis go unused or unexploited.
So what would the likely tax increases be at this point?
I think it's more likely that we'd get some increased taxes on wealthier Americans. That's always politically popular with Democrats, in order to do something like finance infrastructure. They might make a deal with President Trump on that. Triangulation would put pressure on the Senate to do something. They might be able to get that through. But remember, in the Senate, if it's not done through a reconciliation vote, which you only get one of per year, they need 60 votes to get it done. So, even that's going to be a tough sell.
So beyond that, what about the economic recovery? Is it already in danger?
Yes, the economic recovery is being threatened by slower growth abroad and by the Federal Reserve being too aggressive about raising interest rates. You have to remember, we have a lawyer running the Federal Reserve, and he's basically doing it off of a sheet, Cliff Notes, like a kid cheating on an exam. And he's very methodically raising interest rates, without any deference to what we know about what is the maximum sustainable rate. Donald Trump may have been awkward in criticizing the Fed, but if I had been president, Barack Obama would have lunch with Ben Bernanke once a month. I would have those lunches, and I would put it to him between the eyes. The economics profession says 3% is the limit. Fed policymakers say 3% is the limit. Your last statement where you forecasted interest rates, you got it going to 3.5%. Why do you want to simply subterfuge the U.S. stock market? I mean, what's the deal here? You can be pretty blunt in a private meeting. Publicly, it's tough for Donald Trump. But, on this one, his bluntness is correct. The Federal Reserve is pushing interest rates too far.
But what are moves that the president could make to keep the economic recovery going that we have?
Well, I think that an infrastructure package would be very useful, and it depends on how you finance it. An across-the-board income tax increase, or an income tax increase on wealthy Americans, or a tax increase on corporate profits, which slow economic growth even as you're trying to juice it. However, I know this is not popular, but I think we need to look at two things with regard to infrastructure. What we're paying to do something. I mean, go past your typical road construction site. You still got 6 guys standing around and 1 working. That's union rules. That's Davis-Bacon.
Yep.
The other thing, though, is we haven't raised the gas tax in forever. And I think the people that use the roads ought to pay for the roads. But when they pay for roads, they ought to get what they pay for. Davis-Bacon. And also, I'm a biker. I don't think they ought to be using the gas tax to finance bike paths, and they do. The gas tax ought to be for the roads. The user fees at the airports ought to be for the airports. But all of the corruption and all of the deals the Democrats have made to pad their voter rolls over the years using infrastructure projects can't be the way out of this mess.
All right. Peter Morici, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Take care.
Giving it to us straight as always. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and she thinks that you can just pay for free Medicare for all. Says unemployment's low because everyone has 2 jobs, and even wants to get rid of the Electoral College. But apparently, those comments from socialist Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez aren't her fault. How the Congresswoman-elect is taking aim at Republicans. And forget Black Friday, the retailer that just kicked off sales